It's really a pleasure for me to be able to introduce Chris tonight. I've known him now for over 10 years from French-speaking Africa, so you'll all be pleased that he's going to be giving his presentation in French tonight.
No pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. So I've known Chris for 10 years. He's the founding member of the Leadership for Conservation in Africa, and he is a founding member of these Unlocking Nature Talks. Without Chris, none of this would exist. He is a steadfast champion for conservation, an amazing human being, and a very dear friend. And it's a great pleasure for me to be able to welcome him tonight. Many of you know him from his previous talks, but Chris is a man of many hats. He's a French speaker, even though he doesn't know it. He's comfortable in any African situation. He's traveled the continent from top to bottom, from east to west. He's at home everywhere he's ever been, and he's happiest when he's in the field. So a big welcome to Chris, and I'm looking forward to your talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Very special coming from you. Je suis très content. Merci beaucoup.
Ça commence.
Chris, I would just like to take a moment and welcome Ruan as well. Ruan, you've seen his face every Thursday evening, but Ruan is the head of wildlife filmmaking at Homebrew Films. And Ruan, also huge thank you for your contribution to Unlocking Nature. And I know that you are going to be interviewing Chris this evening, so welcome to both of you. Over to you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Juan. And thank you for all the family members. You know, I always refer to you as family. For my sins, I have the wonderful opportunity to interview one of the founding members of Unlocking Nature, as Paul stated this evening. And you might not know this, but Chris loves a meeting. He loves a long meeting. But at the end of these meetings, we always end up, for some odd reason, in a very specific restaurant. And then we start discussing philosophy. It's one of his great loves. And he never stops talking about it. And then once he mentioned the word salutogenesis, which absolutely intrigued me. It took me a while to remember the word salutogenesis. And Chris, I think it is only proper that you kick off the evening by sharing with the family members and the audience what that is all about. The screen, Chris, is all yours.
Thank you. I'll switch on the screen just now, Ruan. I've tried my best to train and teach you about salutogenesis. And unfortunately, you're still battling, and so I have to start all over again. Thanks for the opportunity. I just want to say to everybody, firstly, what I'm going to talk about tonight, I will not do justice to various philosophers and various psychologists in what I'm saying, because I'm just going to make it very basic, stick to the point. And of course, one can debate in depth around each of these issues. At the end, what I would like to do is just encourage everyone who sit here tonight and who will be listening to this talk to keep going. That's what it is about. So I can actually say it's done now, everyone. Let's just keep going. And that is it. But I am going to take a philosophical approach, look a bit of a background about my own studies, and then try and pull that through into our world of conservation. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So why make a difference? The power of eco-healing and how to tap into it, and this talk is obviously done by myself. There was a person in my life that obviously I don't know that changed my life drastically, and that was Professor Aaron Antonovsky. He is an Israeli-American, a medical sociologist. And doing my master's in industrial psychology, I used his theories to do research in a very difficult time in a national park and in South Africa. It was just before the elections, and there were a lot of people who had high levels of angst and uncertainty. And at that time, I did my research within a conservation environment, and I looked at the profile of copers and non-copers within a conservation environment. And these profiles that I've built, I did that by using the theories and the knowledge of Aaron Antonovsky, and I will just refer to him as Antonovsky. He worked on concepts such as stress, health, and wellness, which he termed salitogenesis. Salus being health or wellness, and genesis the beginning. So his concept is focus on the beginning of health. What Antonovsky did, looking back at the Holocaust, he studied a sample of Jewish women who survived the Holocaust. And he then had a control group, and he also obviously studied the control group to also look at copers and non-copers. And his results indicated that 28% of the women in his study who were in the Holocaust and few years after coped very well. And they were very balanced people, compared to a control group of normal other women who, out of those, about 59% coped well, and the rest didn't cope that well. So the conclusion would be, yes, the people, the ladies, the women who came from the Holocaust, they did not cope that well. But what Antonovsky said is, he said that the problem is that we tend to only look at those who coped well and did not cope. And we compare 28 with 59%, and we say, oh, they didn't cope well. But 28% women who came out of the Holocaust, they coped. They did very well. And what kept them healthy? And then he said, well, there's a problem in our system in the sense that we tend to differentiate between health and illness. Either you are healthy or you are ill. Either you are emotional okay or you are emotionally not okay. And from a medical perspective, he pointed out that the pathogenic approach is to look for the reason for people being ill, instead of us looking for the reason why people are well. There's a dichotomy in the way we approach health and illness, as we tend to separate these two concepts. As a result, we often focus just on the origin of being sick. But why not focus on the origin of being well and being healthy? So what he then did, he started with the so-called health ease and dis-ease continuum. So what he said is that on any given day, all of us are on a continuum of ease and dis-ease. So from a health perspective, you might feel healthy in certain ways and less healthy in other. It might be a normal day for you, and you are on the ease side, but you might have a bit of a toothache, or you might have some emotional things that you struggle with. So the dis-ease side is also part of your life. So the ease, dis-ease continuum actually mean that we sort of move up and down ease and dis-ease all the time. And dis-ease, of course, spell disease. And on the continuum, we are all moving up and down. A terminal ill patient might be terminally ill, but still have certain ease elements present in his or her life. And as I am well tonight, I'm on the ease side, but there are certain dis-ease things in my life. And we tend to try and push back to ease all the time. But the most important thing is to understand that it's a contonym and the one does not exclude the other. Just from, and as example, from a religious concept, I've noticed that in religion, people tend to say either you are a believer or you are a non-believer. But it cannot be. On this continent, sometimes I believe in certain things, and other times I just cannot believe, but it's still believing. It's what I think. And I move up and down this continent all the time in my life. So in my own studies in cytogenesis, I have found that society plays a big role to push back from the one to the other side. So let's take an example. We have a very sick patient. Then people tend to push back to the ease side and encourage the sick patient to become better. We look forward to you becoming better. We believe you will become better. And society plays a big role also in this paradigm. But the other way is also true. A patient can be not even that sick, where society might say, family and members around, oh, we know this illness and we know what it does to a person, and he or she actually doesn't stand a chance. And in their very sort of pushing towards the dis-ease side, they actually can play a massive role to move the person, whether it is towards the ease side and the dis-ease side. So in my own studies, I've found that society plays a big role moving us up and down this continent. Now, I just want to use a very practical example where I experience the influence of society. At high school, I studied art. I had art till I finished high school, and our teachers taught us about all the artists in the world. And Mona Lisa was obviously the one piece of art that we studied, and we need to know more and detail about the Mona Lisa. But I had no clue about the Mona Lisa, really. We had a black and white little picture in our book. And the first time I had the opportunity to go to Europe, I went to the Louvre, and early morning I was there. And of course, the first thing I wanted to see was the Mona Lisa. And I got there and I was a little bit disappointed. It's not a very big painting. And everything that our teachers make such a fuss about, so what is the fuss actually? So I left and I went into the Louvre and I watched all the other things, and later decided to come back and wondered, what's the fuss? But as more people entered the Louvre, this happened. Going in there, suddenly there are 60, 70, 80 people crowding to look at the Mona Lisa. She's still the same size as when I saw her the first time. But in the context of the society and the interest of the society, I then realized, but this is something big. This is something huge. And Paul, with all my French people, will say, très bien, fantastique, il est incroyable. And suddenly you realize there's something bigger going on here. And the role of society pushes us in certain directions. So just to come back to wellness and how things changed recently or in the recent times, I'm looking at the paradigm of smoking, how wellness moved the whole society. So a few years ago, of course, the tobacco companies wanted to say that smoking doesn't do anything to you. That's why more doctors smoke Camel. So it doesn't make you sick. But that didn't convince society until it so happened that society started saying, well, you can argue as much as you want to that it doesn't make you sick. The one thing is we know it doesn't make you healthy. And the health concept, what it can do for you, change society so that overnight a critical mass happened. And that changed the thinking of people. And today you don't go in restaurants, public places, wherever, and smoke. But it happened overnight. And with that in mind, I simply would like to say to you that awareness that wellness, the wellness of Mother Earth is the only place that we have. This wellness of Earth is your message. And each one of you represents one of these little islands on the map of the world. And if within your space, you also raise the concept of wellness, not always how bad it is, but how good can we make it, that tends to bring about this critical mass. And you and your organization can really make a critical mass difference. So I want to encourage you at the end of the year. Yes, we can look at the things that are not good. That's not well. But through wellness, we actually change the thinking of the world. And that's got a much more positive message than the illness message. So my conclusion is, and that's not the end of my talk, there's 3 conclusions. Why make a difference? We, the broader conservation society, and all those who strive towards wellness, and I want to emphasize, it's no longer just the conservation society whose voice counts. It's the economists, it's the artists, it is the plumbers, it is the architects, it is the auditors who realize that we have to move the world towards wellness. We, this broader society, can still move the situation from disease to ease, from fear to hope. And that is one of the main reasons why you have to carry on making that difference. But I want to also encourage you in the Antonovsky paradigm of ease, dis-ease, to move towards the wellness side, which tends to bring people to move also towards that level, more so than moving to the dis-ease side. That's my first conclusion on my studies.
Kristen, that's where I'm going to jump in, seeing that I am the interviewer. You mentioned a lot of words that are very relevant in today's society, because as a continuum, everything is available everywhere. And there's a lot, you use the word angst, and there is the German word for anxiety is angst, all over the place. It's on social media. You mentioned the Mona Lisa. There's this movement of young people that are throwing great works of art with paint or food, just to make a message, or to send out a message to the world, especially when taking into account the planetary boundaries that we all should know about. If you do not, please Google it. And how we are far overstretching what our planet can actually, or the carrying capacity of our planet. So I'm going to move away from society and focus on the individual. What do we do? What can I do? What can we, I as an individual, do to cope? How do I do it? What do I do to cope? How do I manage this angst? Keeping in mind this continuum that you spoke of.
Thank you, Ruan. The point is that there is an eco-angst. And it is true that a lot of people are in fear, because our message was also a message of hopelessness and a message of doom. And what I can share with you is what the profile looked like of people who coped during a time of angst. So you as an individual, or people who are in that realm of angst, what could they do? So Antonovsky also he coined the phrase, the sense of coherence. Within the solid genesis side, the beginning of health, he said there are people who have a sense within themselves that they can actually control this angst. They can do something about it. And then he said that there are 3 elements that needs to be present to give you the sense of coherence. So the first is your comprehensibility. Second is meaningfulness. And thirdly is manageability. Now, comprehensibility is to understand. To really understand what is happening here, what are the facts, how would it impact on me? And in my study on copers and non-copers, I found that the coping people, who were all in angst, don't make a mistake, they were in angst because of the political situation and what the change would bring, and with their bloodbath coming, they were in angst. But the copers made an effort to try and understand what happened. They wherever they could, they tried to find information and understand the situation. But the second thing that Antonovsky also pointed out is there needs to be meaningfulness. And the question is, what gives us that meaning in life? And this is where I briefly just want to look at meaningfulness from the perspective of the existentialistic vision or perception. Sorry, I can't read my own screen for some other reason. But I just want to say that we have to also understand what meaning is about. In the existentialism, it says that meaning, existentialism is a way of thinking that focuses on what it means for people to exist. Firstly, and secondly, the philosophical belief is that we are each responsible for creating purpose or meaning in and for our own lives. So if we look at a world that we think in our angst is going nowhere, then where's the meaning? Where's the meaning if you live in absolute poverty? Where is the meaning of life if you cannot see any meaning around you? So in the existentialism, Soren Kierkegaard, who was the father of existentialism, he actually said that we can sort of conclude, rightly or wrongly so, that there's not always meaning around us. And we might be full of angst because of the fact that we don't see the meaning and the purpose around us. And he then said that the purpose of life is to fill the space in which we have landed. We all have landed in a certain space in life. And if you start filling that space, trying to make a difference to your situation in life, then you start finding meaning for yourself. Then your world around you might not necessarily have meaning, but you have meaning because you want to make a difference within that world. Now, I think I'm certain that most of you are aware of Viktor Frankl, who was also an Auschwitz medical doctor, psychiatrist. Landing in there, what could be meaningful within a place like Auschwitz? And people said to him, Victor, it's easy to get out of here. Just walk up to that electrical fence, hold on to it, and it will shock you and it will kill you. Or walk in that direction, you will be shot and killed. So you want out, there's your shortcut. And he said, but I don't want out. But what meaning is there within a place like Auschwitz? And when he started reaching out to others, and there's so many examples and we don't have time for that, he then found meaning for his own life within a meaningless space. So those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. And that is the idea of finding meaning. Now I'm using another example, which is, and I saw Peter turn us in and he might have the name of the person, but this is totally different. working in Ghana, I met a woman, the wife of one of the mine workers, and she traveled a certain road up and down on a regular basis. And traveling that road, there were a lot of traders in bushmeat. And they had animals there, dead animals, half dead animals. And those who were half dead were just half dead because they were just dying, starving of no water, no food. And she tried everything to stop them doing that and told them, but you don't do it. But it changed nothing until she then decided, well, these animals are going to die anyway. Whether they are healthy or not, they're going to die. And then she found meaning for herself by driving up and down that road. And she went to those places and she fed the animals and she gave them water and she looked after them and she felt meaning for herself and got purpose for herself, despite the fact that she knows these animals are going nowhere. Meaning gives purpose and creates understanding. It brings health and it creates passion. And what happened with her, even amongst the traders, some of them stopped trading because when she focused on the health side, on the wellness side, they for the first time looked at it from a different perspective. And that was her meaning and her purpose. So just think about this. What if we exchange this baboon on his way to die, and we say that we still try and help this animal in its suffering with the planet? Keep on focusing on the fact that there is meaning, even if you are on angst. There's meaning and purpose for yourself, despite what you might see around you in Auschwitz or what you see around you on this planet. So coming back to Antonovsky in the sense of coherence, what he says, once you understand and get that information and you find meaning for yourself, like I found amongst the copers in my study, that they wanted to find ways to make a difference and live that difference, then suddenly the third thing happened, and that is you view your circumstances as manageable. And then you can go out and still keep on making a difference because you have a better understanding. You know clearly what it is that you can do. You have found meaning and purpose for yourself, and then the control of the circumstances happen. So through my study of copers and non-copers, I found that copers focused on the reality, demonstrated a high sense of coherence, and accepted the challenge to difficult situations. Non-copers focused on the disaster and everything causing it, demonstrating low sense of coherence and abdicated into hopelessness. And this is where things start changing when you really try and understand what is happening. Say to yourself, what is my purpose in this situation? And then make that difference. So my conclusion too, how can the individual make a difference? From the perspective of a sense of coherence, the comprehensibility, find the meaning for yourself and manage the situation. And the angst then start to disappear. Where with the non-copers, the angst stayed because they couldn't make a difference or didn't find for themselves meaning in making a difference. And that is what I found in my studies, Ruan.
Chris, I'm going to test your maxim now. I'm a born and bred scientist, and you spoke about copers and non-copers, and you used the Holocaust, you used the planet as examples. And what I find in my own life is that when we go from finding meaning, understanding, and viewing something that is manageable, that in that continuum that you spoke of in your first conclusion, that we move from ease to disease, from up and down and up and down. And I want to move away from the me and move towards the us. What happens when we become despondent? Even if we have all the information, we understand what we're working with, but we become despondent, surely, and sometimes we want to give up. What do we do then?
Ron, I want to say today that sometimes I want to give up. And I think sometimes you want to give up. And anyone who sits here tonight who's really battled the situation that we find ourselves in, there are times that you want to give up. And looking at the Antonovsky continuum of ease, dis-ease, that's the time that we move towards the dis-ease side. And we become very uncomfortable in ourselves. And we say, why do we keep on doing? And the question for me is, it's natural that we get there. It's just logic. And how can we change that? What difference can it make? Now, when I work from time to time with people who are, for instance, depressed, one of the things I point out very, very strongly is that they have to keep on exercising, because that also brings healing and wellness through the endomorphine. But then I also encourage them to get into nature. And this is where I say, focus on the power of eco-healing. And the question, what is eco-healing? When we go into nature, when we really immerse ourselves into nature, it's about a sense of place, sense of beauty, a sense of harmony, and there's a sense of systemic order. We find a balance and order there. When you view yourself as an integral part of nature and experience nature, then a certain level of recreation takes place within you. And even those who are here in this talk tonight, who are conservationists, how often do you really immerse yourself back into nature? And in these times, this is where we get recreated. Recreation means back into the creation, finding your space in there in the ecosystem, which is rather spiritual. It does bring new energy and new hope and new balance, and you feel that there's this systemic order. Nature has a peaceful effect on the mind. Nature has a calming effect on stressful emotions. It's grounded effect on the psyche, spiritual belonging for the soul. Literally for the soul, you feel you belong there because you're part of that. And then the reciprocal side, if somebody or something does something good for you, you want to return that. And within this eco-healing process, when you are healed or recreated by nature, then that's exactly what you want to bring back to nature, is keep nature intact for what I receive from nature. Look at this picture. Peter, you will remember, this is Cape 3 Point in Ghana, on the beach. And when you look at this, of course I become anxious. Of course I look at this and say, this world here, when I'm seeing, is sick, and it makes me anxious. And when I look at this picture, it brings calmness, peace, harmony. Just by looking at this, I already feel differently. If I look at this picture, I actually say to myself, it's hopeless. It's just hopeless. But when I look at this picture, I get this feeling of I belong, calmness, and it brings a certain level of wellness back to my life. I just want to reiterate, eco-healing, is it spiritual? I think so. It's about the sense of place, beauty, harmony, systemic order, and all the things that brings to us. As I would say to a depressed person, do exercise and do go into nature and find healing there. Then I'm saying that takes you again from the dis-ease side back into the ease side, and that brings new energy. Briefly want to share with you, just briefly, and I have the permission of this person to share with you. Former Minister of Forest Department of Forestry, and also Minister of Water in Senegal, Haidar El Ali. I've spent some time with him 3-4 weeks ago, and we went into the mangroves and into the forest, and I've been exceptionally busy, and I felt also going back into nature, how I could relax and how it took me from the dis-ease side back into the ease side and wellness. And as we drove home one night or late afternoon, he said, Chris, I first have to go to a tree. And we came to this tree, hundreds of years old, beautiful old tree, full of warts. And you look at this tree. And then Haidar said to me, please excuse me and leave me alone. And there's Haidar, the former minister. And he went and he touched the tree and he climbed around the tree into those open spaces. And he spent probably 10-15 minutes there. He's nearly 70 years old. He had a brain aneurysm last year. And he says, I need more courage and energy because I have many trees to plant. He has facilitated the planting of 200 million mangrove trees. And he said, I get my energy from the trees themselves. So in short, my conclusion, the world, we, you and I, we need eco-healing to be able to move our state of wellness from dis-ease to ease. And nature has a way to take us to the ease side. Ruan, you're on mute.
Apologies. It's so important that that you reminded us now that we are part of it. But I have a question. Within time and space, within this continuum that you spoke of, there needs to be progress. How do we take eco-healing once understood, and we have the meaning and we have the hope? How do we take it to, let's say, something called eco-strength? How do we go from the light green block to the dark green block on the continuum?
Thank you, Ruan. I see you have listened once to me, so that's why you know. And thanks for asking that. How to tap into your eco-strength. Andy Klee sent a message last week, and he's working with young people, and he said, you know, how do I bring the superhero out of me? How do I galvanize the superhero and make something out of it? And again, I just want to share with you my experience. Ron, I just want to close here. It is about the acceptance of your unique persona. And this persona of yours is naturally formed like any species in the ecosystem. What does that boil down to? There's only one me. I sat with one of the people when I interviewed, and I was researching the Copa, non-Copa side, and the one person said to me, you know what, you look at that shrub there, then broken, went through drought, went through difficult things, but there it is, and it is a species, and it is unique. And when we realize that each one of us were made uniquely. You can even clone me, but you will not get a second. Then I start discovering within myself that nature formed me to be a very specific, unique persona. And I always say, if I'm like you, who's going to be like me? And the discovery of the fact that nature created me gives me a very, very specific purpose and meaning within life. So nature's gift to you is your uniqueness, and that's your wellness. And what I found amongst the copers and the non-copers, that the copers look at their past as empowering and not disempowering. The non-copers looked at their past as disempowering. So the copers would look at both the ease side in their life and the dis-ease side and say, even the dis-ease side empowered me. And that dis-ease side, that difficult part of my life, how my person developed uniquely, created a unique person. And the copers then opted to move towards the ease side because they decided that they are empowered by nature to be unique. And when you discover that you are unique, then you can start fulfilling your role. Only you can do what needs to be done, like Kierkegaard said, in the space where you have landed. And when you exercise your uniqueness, then things change. So how do I tap into, or do you tap in your own eco strength? Choose your habitat. What is the natural fit for you? What's your passion? And you don't need to have a BSc. You don't need to be a ranger. You can be an auditor, you can be a student, you can be somebody who are living out there a little bit on your own, but discovering that you have a unique role in the space where you have landed, and that unique role is normally where your passion is, then you can start making a bigger and bigger difference, also towards the critical mass that will start changing the thinking, and you never know what it happens. So changing this eco strength in me, or getting this eco strength, also comes with commitment. Once I discover that I have a unique persona, once I discover that my past is my empowerment, and once I've discovered that I can use that uniqueness through my passion, I have to commit. And I'm just reading to you what Goethe said, Hans Wolfgang Goethe, poet and philosopher, German poet and philosopher, and many other things. He said, until one is committed, there's hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always indifference. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there's one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issue from this decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man would have dreamed would have come his way. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And this is what I found in the life of the Copus, that the Copus committed, and then things unfold. And then you are becoming the change agent, also in our world of angst and our world of conservation, moving towards the wellness. On the Aaron Antonovsky Salagenesis, ease, dis-ease, continuum. Ease, focus on the origin of health. where dis-ease focus on the origin of illness. And with that comes death. And I want to encourage each one of you, the very unique person you are, with your very, very only fingerprint in the world, nobody else like you. To discover that, find your energy within nature and focus on healing, which pulls a lot of others with you instead of focusing on the youngs. I think we've got a big role to play in that. And close by saying, I would like to encourage you to keep on going also in 2023. And thank you to all of you in this beautiful photo that I got from Gus Mills. Thank you for what you are doing, your organization, your persona, and the wonderful people that have contributed on our programs through the last year. You have moved the world, and with a continuous commitment, we will do the impossible. And the equation could move from the dis-ease into the ease. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Chris. I just quickly want to return back to your, you might have seen me grab a book here behind me, to your quote from Goethe. It reminded me very much, if you haven't read it, please give it a read. If you love a metaphor, Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. It's exactly what Goethe said. It's a wonderful, short little book, beautiful. But that aside, Chris, the bottom line, as I see it, and I hope we all see it like that, is that through our gregariousness as a species, using our individual uniqueness to contribute to the whole and bringing about a critical mass to save life, the bottom line is just don't give up. That's all it's about. Just don't give up. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Exactly.
And on that note, I would like to thank Chris for this last talk for the year on Unlocking Nature. You're not only one of the founding fathers, but you're also the captain of the ship, my captain, as they spoke in the movie Dead Poets Society. It's been an absolutely wonderful talk, something that made me think about a lot of things, about how I think about life, the past, the present, the future, and how it continuously moves, just like nature outside. It's not a static system, it's dynamic, and that's what makes it special. And you clearly made that you pronounced it very clearly tonight. Thank you very much, Chris. And I am going to give over the screen to my colleague, Aisha, to handle the questions and answers. Aisha, Chris, the screen is all yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ruan. And thank you very much, Chris. I see there's already some hands up and there's many comments, positive comments in our chat. Before I go to that, I just want to say, Chris, I met you 3 years ago, 2019, in Tanzania at Ruvuma. We were in the bush, there was no technology, and we were on camp. And
there were other people too, Aisha?
Yes.
Just want to check that
just
out.
to clarify.
You know, we public here.
But I think everyone that was there, I remember the first talk that you gave there. You spoke and you said, whenever I'm under anxiety, I think you could sense that I was very anxious at that time. You said I should take that and calm down and then convert that into energy and then ask myself, what is the next step and what is the next step? And I've always kept that with me. And the following year we had the pandemic, and then I lost my job and I found a new job. And currently with the studies, and 2022 was a difficult year for a lot of us. So I think this, like the COVID booster shot, was just something that I needed. And judging from the comments, I think everyone here appreciates your words tonight, Chris. So thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Isha. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to go to the questions. And first up is Lorraine.
Wonderful talk, Chris. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say a couple of things. I think that shift has already begun to happen in a big way. You know, the word rewilding. If you said rewilding 10 years ago, no one knew what you were talking about. Now you see it all the time. Places being rewilded. You know, maybe it's just because I read The Guardian and maybe not other, but even in more very mainstream, you know, news places, you see rewilding all the time. And that you know, when you said about the cigarette ad, you know, that people didn't, you know, it was that shift that suddenly happened just like that. I mean, it can happen so quickly. And as far as doing, I think the most powerful thing that you can do, as you said, is to do something. And I think the important thing also is to focus on one thing. I mean, I've been working on this film for ages. It's done. The pandemic that we had, I wasn't affected by it at all because I was so focused on the film that, you know, I hope will make a difference. I am now in Tanzania and I'm surrounded by poachers, literally. It's not so important to me because I'm focused on that film. And, you know, you can only do so much, but so it's kind of like the narrower your focus, the more impact you can have. I guess that's what I want to say. Anyway, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lorraine. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. Next in the queue, we've got Paul Tefler. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I didn't know that you're going to introduce me. Thanks. You've been more than kind. You moved the impression from dis-ease to ease. I feel better tonight about myself.
I want to thank you, Chris, first and foremost, for another inspiring talk. And there's a good reason that you inspire me all the time. And I just want to say to the rest of the audience that for those of you who don't know Chris, for those of you who know Chris, you know that what we saw tonight is who he is. And he has this incredible ability to look deeply at a problem and come up with the nuggets of what it is and the solutions. And that's one of his great strengths. For those of you who don't know Chris, this talk is exactly who he is. It's all about your uniqueness and what you can contribute and looking to the positive side of things and making a difference. And it doesn't matter who you are. He was so right when he said, you don't need a master's degree or bachelor's degree. Every unique individual can contribute. And if there's a takeaway message, follow your dreams, follow your heart, do what's right, and you'll feel better about yourself and the world will improve. And that's what's the most important. So thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Paul. I definitely echo your words as well. Next in the queue, Andy Klee.
Cool, thanks, Aisha. Chris, that was brilliant. Thank you ever so much. I've kind of got two bits of a question, and I think they kind of interlink. I'm sat here with my old Commando mug. You probably can't see it. And this is a question about how your survivors coped, but used other people as well as part of a network. It's very easy to focus on what we as individuals can do, but when we work together, we can do so much more. And I wondered if there's an element of having a support network of other people around you has helped people cope and survive. You know, when we're feeling low, somebody else can take the lead for a while. So perhaps you could say a bit more about that. And also you touched on spirituality, not something we often cover, you know, or you guys often cover on the talks because it's very science focused. And it'd be interesting to know a little bit more about that. I mean, the spiritual part of it, does that mean that spiritually we could be part of a wider thing and tapping into a wider power as well? I don't quite know how to ask the question, but I think you might get what I'm on about. ish. Don't worry if not, and just move on to Marty. He's probably got a better question than me. I'll shut up. Oh, and happy Christmas, everyone, if I don't speak before. Cheers.
Thanks, Eddie. Just two comments on the two issues that you raised. The one thing that I really want to ask everybody who's linked to any conservation organization or institute, we can do so much more cohesively that can change the world if we stop criticizing each other. One thing I have noted is how the professional jealousy can play a role, and we each as organizations see ourselves as our little island and the only island. And you don't have to share your money with the other island. But I think what we could do and should do is acknowledge the others, applaud them, and the world will also start applauding us, and it can change. Spirituality, Andy, normally we do not raise, I would say, religious issues on this program. I just want to say that I'm using a quote from the Taoism, which says, if you can define God, it cannot be God. And I think the closest we can get for our spirit to touch something much bigger and deeper and wider and greater than us is within nature. Just that. That is the closest you can get to have some understanding of the reality of something huge, whatever that may be. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks.
Earlier, I just want to say earlier this week, Ruan and I were speaking that just to say what Paul said, as well as it's not just what you know, it's who you know and how you network to move on forward. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go to Tom next. Tom, I asked you to unmute.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Aisha. Chris, I'm very, very intrigued with this continuum that you showed, that you displayed. And you did touch on some of the variables that impact where a person falls on that continuum, particularly social norms. I'm just wondering if you have thoughts on how individuals can be self-aware of where they fall on that continuum. Because in my research that I have done in the past, that when this notion has been brought up, they haven't a clue until they're reminded about the whole notion of eco-healing and intrinsic values of nature, et cetera. So what are your thoughts, or do you have any experience on how to get people to understand their place on that continuum? Because that ultimately will affect behaviors towards the environment for sure.
It's a loaded question, Tom, and I'm not so sure that I can answer it in one short sentence. The fact is that we are moving up and down that continuum all the time. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm just grabbing into the psychometrics, the very well known and maybe overused psychometric assessment instrument called the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. And some research done through Myers and Briggs' mother and daughter, if they found that under stress, certain of your natural ways of doing suddenly turn around into what is actually unnatural to you. You might be normally somebody who use your brain, cause and effect thinking, and then under stress, you will suddenly turn around into a more emotive, emotional person, missing harmony, feeling yourself totally aside from anything else. And a very, very broad answer to a very complicated question is that you know within yourself when your persona start changing to be not who you actually are. And that's the indicator to you that you are moving to a certain extreme on this continent. And that's the time when you have to reach out and say, now I have to find my support, and then go and find your eco strength, and then go in there and find that. But it is the change in behavior, the sudden change, especially in behavior, that says to you, you are moving to a certain extreme on the continent. A short answer, but there's much more to say about that. Thanks, Tom.
There sure is, Chris. You know, cognitive dissonance has a huge impact on that continuum as well for the individual. But yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom, and good morning there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Chris. Okay, and of course, our next question is from Marty Jasper.
Hey, Marty, I know you're going to ask something that I can't answer.
So I'm going to surprise you all. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you, Chris. This is like a personal talk for me. As a mentor to me and encourager, and I just want to thank you for what you've inputted into all of our minds and lives and thoughts. And I listened carefully, and I will listen to the recording again, and I hope that I can take what you've said and incorporate into my life, because I've been in the dis-ease position for too long. So thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Marty. And when I thought that if I redo this, then I'll try to improve my English on the recording. But then I also realized that is also part of my unique fingerprint. Gusmel's tried his best to teach me proper English, but it's not working. So as it is, this is who I am. Thank you, Marty. Really appreciate it.
It strikes a chord when you talk about being unique. I've been told I'm fairly unique. So thanks for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. He doesn't talk a lot. Ruan.
Chris, when Tom asked his question, you mentioned two words that I've always felt very, very strong about. You used the term natural and unnatural. Now, I'm a biologist by training. So for me in biology, there is no such thing as unnatural. It's a social construct. It's a human idea. And I've always believed that if we understand our own nature, our own natural being, anything's nature, then everything will be fine. I mean, you just spoke about conflicting politicians and war and whatnots, and everything can be drawn back or compared to with some other species in nature. And it's just a statement, but I've always felt very strong about it, that I don't like to use the word unnatural, because there is, for me, no such thing. If you understand the nature of something, or try to understand the nature of something, then you're on the right track. That's just my 2 cents worth. Thank you, Chris.
Ron, you are totally correct. Just want to ask, can you see my screen?
Yes.
We can see it.
I just want to see if I can get this one slide here. Let me just see. Sorry, I just want to grab this slide. Unnatural for me is when man isolate, and I'm saying man, him, when man isolate him or herself from nature and put itself into a cage, as if we are not nature, but we want to control nature around us as if we have the right to do that. That's unnatural. That's when you are alienated. And then that's when you try to dominate it. Where on the other side, it's natural when you find yourself as just a little part of the ecosystem. And you're 100% right. Everything is natural. but it becomes unnatural when we consider ourselves not part of it, controlling it, and alienate ourselves from that. And from that point of view, it is, from my perspective, totally unnatural. And this recreation is also, if I could say that, is to find the balance in there. I'm just one of many. And that's where my energy lies, in the fact that I'm part of the bigger system and not dominating the bigger system. Hope it, but you're right, absolutely 100% right, Ruan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Aisha.
Thank you, Ruan. Thank you, Chris. Next, we've got Neil.
Hi, Aisha. Hi, Ruan. Nice
Hi.
to see you too. I actually just wanted to echo Marty's compliments for Chris. I think that it's very complex theory and very complex philosophy that Chris managed to make very tangible for us tonight. And as our friend Paul said, he's able to really take the nuggets and produce the nuggets. And we've seen that over and over again with our interactions with Chris. He manages to crystallize ideas. So for me personally this evening as well, it's late in the year. I think a lot of us that do take a break now are actually more focused on the break than where we are in the present. And for me personally, it was a tonic. It was a tonic to hear and something to think about over the next couple of weeks and apply in 2023. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Neil. And as you're going into the holiday season, make it more than a tonic. Do a gin and tonic, okay?
With pleasure.
Chris, that's why you're the dad in the group. Okay, our next question is Murphy.
Murphy Tladi. Hello, Murphy Tladi.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. I hope I don't cross the line about spirituality and religion. But my question is also on those lines. It's actually maybe a comment that you can comment on. There's a movie that I once watched. It's sort of an ecology conservation movie. One of the people in there who was trying to teach other people about the native culture said that the previous groups failed because you cannot fill a cup that is already filled. And in my mind, what came when you were presenting was that I already have some things that I know in my mind from the biology, the conservation side. But now when we talk about the spirituality part, maybe I might come with something in my mind that might prevent me from learning the right way, or something that you're trying to show me. So I was thinking maybe you can share with us maybe how we can empty our cups when we're trying to become these spiritual beings in this environment. Because nowadays we see ourselves as superior species, we can do whatever we want. Now, how do I see myself like at par with other animals, with other species? How do I empty that cup? Maybe we have something to say. I hope you understood that part.
Murphy, I'm not sure if I'm totally clear, but I am going to try.
Okay.
And again, from a spiritual or religious, rather let's just call it religion. That's why I preferred the word spirituality than religion, because religion comes with a lot of dogma and rules and regulations and things that control that.
True.
The only thing that I would like to say to you that took me a while as a person to also understand that the life of that giraffe that I'm looking at, or the life of the whale or the shark for that matter, is not less important than my life. It's as important. And at the end, I could, and I'm trying to, I could sort of level the playing field just through the respect for life. The respect for life is the bridge that will take you over a lot of the religion ideologies and things that you have to come around. Just your respect for life. And I think there's very few religions that would sort of stand up to you if you show respect for life. And then I would like to add to it, and that is more on the religion side. Life, and if you're then a religious person that believe in that way, life is then a creation of God. And if I don't respect that creation, no need to even try and define some other God. Because if that's the essence, life is a creation, the hugeness of which we don't understand. Sorry, Murphy, I tried, I'm not sure.
You answered it correctly. I think that's what I was looking for, the respect for life. Now it clicks that if you have that respect, you are obviously going to be at the same level. You're going to see yourself in the same level with other species.
Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you for
and person will say to you, you know, do you have more respect for the one than the other? I just also came to a point in my life where I really think twice, to make it very simple, to kill a cockroach. You know, think twice. Just think twice. Just respect for life. Just think twice. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Chris.
Thank you, Murphy, and keep on going. Murphy Tladi, where are you from, Murphy?
I'm from Botswana. I'm a PhD student in University of Botswana.
Great. Thanks. Good to see you. Thanks, Murphy.
Thank you, Murphy. Thank you very much, Chris. Okay, next in the queue, we've got Yusuf. Yusuf Hassan. I think we're struggling again with the Yusuf. Okay.
There he is.
There he is.
Yusuf Hassan from Kenya.
Hello.
Got you, Yusuf.
I'm here in USA. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. We have really enjoyed the topic about how we can make a difference.
I think, yeah, Yusuf, you're cutting off. I think there's a sound issue.
Maybe you can write his question in the text, in the chat.
Yusuf, I'll wait for your question in the text. In the meantime, Andy, you next.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Yusuf, if you can hear me, we could not hear you, so maybe consider to write in the chat or just try again. Unmute yourself, Yusuf, and let's try again, please, and then it's over to Andy. Okay, I'm going to ask him to unmute. There he goes. Okay, I'm asking you to unmute, Yusuf. There we go.
Hello.
Okay, we can hear.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Yusuf.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Chris. The topic was really helping and educating us. I wish to say that also we need youth to be engaged on how to protect the earth and understanding the issue of climate change.
Were you able to get that, Chris?
Yeah, Yusuf, I simply want to say that it should become the honor of us, the older people, to hand over to the youth. It must be our honor. And it's part of wellness. It's sometimes difficult to step down, but it must be an honor to hand over to the youth. And you're right, the youth have to be the ones that take us into the future, no doubt, and trust them for doing that, because they can. Yusuf dropped out.
Okay.
Aisha.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Yusuf. Okay. Our next question is Andy. Andy, I'm asking you to unmute.
Okay, sorry, that's 2 from me tonight. Chris, we all need clear thinking and ability to see the right sort of courses of action. And we've heard about this about you from a number of people who've commented on your amazing work. So what's the secret? How do you manage to clear through the clutter and find the little thing we can push and nudge to make the difference? I'm not being, I think it's really useful if you can give us some pointers, because I need help with all that. And the more clear thinking there is, the better at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. I mean what I say, and it's not a cliche. No man is an island. And there are a lot of very, very knowledgeable people around us. What I tend to do is I tend to approach individuals. There's Paul, there's Neil, there's Tom, there's Marty, whoever is there. And I sort of ask myself, who are the people that I think could help me think clear through things? But I tend to contact them individually. I ask their individual advice, and then out of that sort of independent opinion, I then try and collate for myself a holistic view on what I got from them. When you ask a group, you tend to get groupthink, because it's very easy to follow. But I really try to hone into the speciality of people and get answers from them and seek their guidance. So that's the one thing. But that still means there's a team of people around you. It's not you, it's the team of people. And sometimes people think, oh, but this guy is very bright. It's actually that he gave the answer of so many who helped him think through it. And that's very vital. That's really vital. And the other thing, Andy, and any compliments that I've received tonight, I just want to reiterate, there are just so many good people out there. And we just need to take hands with them. And thanks to all the good people who are out there, and you who are sitting here, and for your friendship and being through the battles together. But then, Andy, I think from a military perspective, at the end, it's tenacity. It is absolute tenacity. We work in the Africa context, and I can assure you, I've knocked at the doors of governments and organizations, and they sort of handle you a little bit, and and then you come back, and you feel that you are human. One day, suddenly, you realize now they are serious, because it's as if they want to check us out, that we are really committed and serious in what we are doing. And tenacity is a major, major part of moving forward. And that is, again, based on your own meaning, that you see your purpose, and that when you're clear about that, then the tenacity is there. 2 short ideas about your question, and hopefully we can discuss again. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Ivas Perides, all the way from Germany tonight, I think.
Sorry, I think I'm unmuted now. Yeah, that's right, Chris, all the way from Germany tonight. For once, not on the African continent, but I really just wanted to say thank you. I think your talk was really brave tonight. Personally, I can talk with you for hours personally on every single slide that you presented. You've actually touched one of my passion projects or passion subjects tonight. And yeah, I can talk about this for a long time. But I mean, I haven't been here for quite some time now. And obviously it led me to your talk tonight. And I just want to say that you inspired me a lot tonight. You encouraged me to talk a lot more about these subjects that I actually know so much about. But it's, yeah, it's still, especially on a, as we said earlier, on a scientific platform like this one, it's very, very encouraging that we can also talk about these things and a little bit about the things that we cannot see but sense, and that are so important. I call it a holistic approach. That's what it's basically all about. Many of us have heard this word, but what it actually means is a different thing. And I think all areas of life, it doesn't matter if it's wellness, if it's health, or if it's conservation, but everything needs a holistic approach. And that includes body, mind, and spirit, which means we also have to start talking more about spirituality, or whatever you want to call it. And I think you did that so well tonight. So just a big thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Thanks
Eva.
to you, and keep going. Keep going.
Thank you.
Tenacity.
I will never get up. No.
Right. Then you have a purpose.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eva. Okay, a surprise again, Marty.
Yeah, so I don't even know whether what I'm asking now is even a question, but I think sort of Murphy, what you asked also inspired me a bit, and sort of just saying further to Murphy's question, I'm not sure if you guys are in agreement, but there's a thought. Some species were possibly created with more or different intelligence on a cognitive level, but in a way that means we've actually got more responsibility. Not necessarily more power to abuse. We should use what we've been given in a superior intellect or wisdom, or the way that our minds can work and do things, engineer stuff, to make life better for those who we believe have lesser intellect, and in the same time actually learn from those simple life forms to teach us real stuff. It's not a question. It's not a question.
I just want to say you can do the next talk. Thank you, Marty. We'll put you on the list.
Okay, and then
if I may, I just want to add to what Murphy said and what Marty said, and this has been one of the creeds of my life, is back to basics. And Marty, you perfectly summarized it. I'm going to use a book again. Liesel van As, the professor, I hope she's still in, but I always go back to books. But just read Darwin. It's all in here. What he did was he linked us all. He linked everything in the world together and made a holistic picture of life. It's all linked. It's all interlinked. Just read Darwin. It's a bit of a long read. The English is a bit hard, but just read Darwin. And it all boils down to exactly what Marty said, that we can learn from other species. It's a niche. We fill a niche, and it's how you use that space, how you use that habitat. You spoke of it, Chris. You choose your habitat. And it's wonderful. But yeah, just read Darwin. Then we'll all be fine.
Yeah, read Darwin and remember Murphy's Law. Hand it over to the youth.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're getting to the end now.
Yes, Chris. And I was checking the comments. I didn't see many questions, a lot of compliments. So I think if Marie can forward that chat to you, Chris.
But thank you. Thank you. I always amaze myself just because I always consider myself the last person to really be called a conservationist. But then again, the inspiration also comes from those around. That's also something that is just incredible. And if it's Sandra Harding writing us a poem, or Ismail Makweba, who's just doing his job very well, and whether it's Jennifer that's doing it in different languages, and then I just go through the names here, Clive Hollock that does it in a very unique way with the sun. So we carry on, just get inspiration from those. You are our and my inspiration. Let's collectively be that for each other. And we don't need to form one organization, but if we acknowledge each other, then we are one. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So Eddie Koch seems to have a last word there. Aisha. Hello, Eddie Koch.
Okay, Eddie, Eddie Fourie, I'm asking you to unmute.
Thank you. Just a short comment, Chris, as an old colleague and friend, just one word, respect. And if I may say something, let's just mind our minds. Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie. Respect. Thank you. The only thing I don't respect of what you just said is one of my old colleagues. Forget that, Eddie. We're still youngsters. We've got a long way to go. Thanks, Eddie. You are a person who shows respect all the time. That's how I know you. Thank you. All right, Aisha, I think I have to call it a day.
Yes, thank you, Chris.
I thank you.